Success in the social web begins with a thorough understanding of the organization's goals and objectives, not merely fulfilling a vague need to have a presence on popular social networks. The metaphor is useful because it helps us see ownership as a grouping of interpersonal rights that can be separated and put back together. Quite the opposite. Living in the context of the screen might suggest false norms of desirable lifestyles full of friends and parties. Thomas Edison's name is synonymous with invention, and his most famous invention, the electric light bulb, is a familiar symbol for that flash of inspired genius traditionally associated with the inventive act. The primary purpose of commercial music radio broadcasting is to deliver an audience to a group of advertisers and sponsors. If you're finally living the story you want, then it shouldn't and won't be an ordinary one. The world has become a nation of laws and governance that has introduced a system of public administration and management to keep order. Yet despite this, unpaid work and volunteering still remain outside the defined economic framework of our capitalist system because capitalism has competition and financial reward as its cornerstones and volunteering does not. Children can move effortlessly between play and absorption in a story, as if both are forms of the same activity. And we throw obstacles in the way of innovators, on behalf of those with a vested interest in the status quo, investors, managers, and employees alike. This gives you a much better map of the future on which to base your decisions about which path to choose. Ask yourself, how much joy will this bring me? Will the joy be temporary or long-lasting? It appears that the more territorial borders fall apart, the more various groups around the world cling to place, nation, and religion as markers of their identity. This is because this animal spends a lot of its time with its head bent down to eat a low-nutrient food, grass. By the same token, our behavior is endlessly shaped by the possibility that somebody else might be watching us or might find out what we have done. After all, you're not just the author of your story but also its main character, the hero. There is no single, universal, or authoritative version that makes sense, other than as a theoretical construct. There is pressure to conform rather than to maintain their cultural identities, however, and these conflicts are greatly determined by the community to which one migrates. Different parts of the brain's visual system get information on a need-to-know basis. Seriously, however, in every branch of education, including moral education, we make a mistake when we suppose that a particular batch of content or a particular teaching method or a particular configuration of students and space will accomplish our ends. Typically, people report roaming dogs for pickup by animal control authorities, who take the dog to the local shelter. Mobility flows have become a key dynamic of urbanization, with the associated infrastructure invariably constituting the backbone of urban form. If, thanks to endless chat and intrigue, the world knows that you are a good, charitable guy, then you boost your chance of being helped by someone else at some future date. But the only way confidence can grow is when we are willing to be without it. Frequently, this has displaced citizen involvement. Thus, instead of music reviews guiding popular opinion toward art, as they did in pre-internet times, music reviews began to reflect consciously or subconsciously a public opinion. Companies using this type of measure are in denial. Good teachers know that learning occurs when students compare what they already know with the new ideas presented by the teacher or textbook. As ordinary human beings follow the activities of these golden individuals, self-esteem will inevitably drop, yet the constant narcissistic obsession with the self and its inadequacies will dominate. The converse is also the case. I am less likely to get my back scratched, in the form of a favor, if it becomes known that I never scratch anybody else's. However, the criterion of a trialability poses a problem as working farms are flawed laboratories, and farmers cannot set up controlled conditions like professional test plots in research facilities. The challenge of tackling visuals to examine their influence is multifaceted. As for, say, color vision, they just say that, despite the same internal processing architecture, how we interpret, categorize, and name emotions varies according to culture and that we learn in a particular culture the social context in which it is appropriate to express emotions. As the bright sunlight hits our eyes, we would encounter a world far different from what we would normally expect. Argumentation also exposes individuals to differing perspectives and compelling reasons, prompting them to reconsider their beliefs or suspend belief altogether. Namely, the pleasure consists of being challenged and struggling to understand and decode the phenomenon present to view. Rather than treating robots as peer agents with their own completely independent agenda, joint cognitive systems approaches treat robots as helpers such as service animals or sheepdogs. Individuals don't want to be or appear to be isolated. For many actors, they experience greater empathy and social cognition for their character, which may intensify identity boundary blurring. Maybe you'd enjoy a concert with friends or a dinner cruise during the summer. In other words, the reduction in capacity of territorial borders to separate and defend against others often elicits adverse reactions in numerous populations. It is important that we allow ourselves time to free our minds from even the possibility of constant connectivity, to normalize deactivation, as herbalist Sophia Rose puts it, allowing our overstimulated neuronal connections to rest and reassemble. Multiple studies show that anxiety is markedly reduced, and we gain benefits similar to solitude, not by simply turning our phones off, but by having them not physically with us. Creating tax policy requires identifying a moral goal, which is a task that must involve ethics and moral analysis. The concerning thing is that customers who don't complain there and then increasingly post their views on the internet and through the social networking sites, they are no longer telling 9 or so people but are probably telling thousands. Unless it is of obvious use to ourselves, we tend to imagine the bad consequences that might occur far more than the good ones. There are significant advantages to turning such interactions at a remove back into actual social encounters. During times of crisis and change, business leaders are often faced with the challenge of either telling an uncomfortable truth, remaining silent, or downplaying the severity of the situation. Engaging in argument involves significant risks as it requires exchanging and examining reasons with the aim of believing what the best reasons dictate.